What's up, folks? I'm Odd, by the way, and today we are at a different sort of experiment, I suppose. So, I had an idea that I wanted to play around with, and I'm back doing my best friend and love, random generators. Basically, the idea that I had in mind was that I was going to let's say, because I'm going to roll a random picture from this site on Random Word Generator. I'm inclined to believe the little blurb below here says that these images are all like free open source, no attribution, stuff like that. Probably from websites like Unsplash and the like, but they've just kind of like collected 1,000 plus of these images. But yeah, so the idea here is that I'm going to, I think, set this to like, I guess national parks would work. Well, I didn't want to do it yet. I wanted to roll a landscape picture and have it be like an inspiration slash background for creatures, right? So I take the aesthetic, the landscape, the color scheme, and just like where we are in general, and I try to make a beastie that lives there, right? Maybe a couple, probably a couple, just based off of the one landscape. So that is my idea for this episode, and I'm curious to see how it goes about. Let's just roll, because this is nice. I kind of want something maybe with some terrain, but I could be too picky. Ooh, okay. Kind of looks like home. There's a guy there. Actually, are these sequoias? These big ones? I don't think they might be. Let's look at the size of this guy versus the size of the tree. Sycamores or whatever. Some burned ones over here. Okay, and this is an interesting like wide angle shot. You can see, was it like a panorama? Are these hills or like, yeah, is this just a weird aperture? I can't tell, but I will grab it, copy paste it over into clip. I'm trying to think like off the top of my head what kind of creature would live here. I mean, like, it's snowy, so you could definitely have like snow creatures. There are also trees. It's like white, orange, and green. A little bit of black in here with the charred trees. Maybe something lives in the charred trees. Yeah. Okay, I'll sort it out. So I'm going to grab this photo, and I'll probably just pop right over to Speedtime voiceover from this. Just a little short intro for you. Short and sweet. But I'll see you there. So initially I had a little bit of trouble to start with this, because usually I have some sort of prompt for the creatures, right? Some hybrid or other, or Pokemon, what have you. This was similar to like the 3-color challenge, where I'm kind of designing on a whim and with the palette. I also struggled for a minute trying to figure out how to present this. Do I sketch the creatures on the background? Oh man, this version of the picture is too small. Ooh, they have a link to the actual page the picture is from. There's a bigger version. But if I draw the animals here, I'd have to lower the opacity of the image, couldn't reference the colors, plus it looks busy. Do I even use the image at all, or does that look cheesy? Eventually, I kind of landed on a little bit of the best of both. I drew the creatures in one file and copied their layer folders over to the other when I needed to place them, so I could still shade and alter the original a bit to blend it better with the background. Now, when it came to the creatures, I swear I had it in mind initially that, okay, I do my creature designs in threes. That's probably a good number, so I'll try to map out like a tiny food chain. We need an apex predator, of course, and their prey. Then maybe a smaller predator. Ooh, but I gotta have smaller prey for that animal then too. And maybe another large prey for some varieties. Let's add a squirrel in. I don't know why my brain is like this. Eventually, I landed on an assortment of kind of like wintry fantasy animals. A good few you may already recognize. I made a griffin to be our large apex predator skulking in the background. For the smaller predator, I wound up using a creature of my own creation, the drake fox. Drake foxes are kind of inherent to my larger work-in-progress story, Thrakos, and the ones that we see are more inspired by Arctic foxes, so it made sense here. This is kind of a generic one. It's hard to draw them a little bit less personified, because I'm used to drawing the character Glenn from Thrakos, and he's all personality, so trying to draw a wild Drake fox is a little bit new to me, in fact. Then for the larger herd animals, I went for one of my favorites, a peritid. And kind of a spin on the Kirin. Apparently, Kirin come from a Japanese version of the Qilin, which is Chinese. But Kirin are sort of more like deer, dragon, unicorn things. This one turned out to be a bit more muted and winter-like than the usual jewel tone ones, though. Also doesn't necessarily have like the big flowy mane. The smaller prey animals here are a jackalope. This one's all American baby, just a rabbit with antlers, and a two-tailed squirrel. It is kind of just a squirrel. It actually was partly inspired by this manga I got when I was pretty young called Hibiki's Magic. And a pretty central animal in the story are these twin-tailed white squirrels they call gusks, at least in the translation. It looks like it actually has two more volumes than I had. I thought that it just stopped at the two, but they don't appear to have been translated to English, so maybe that's why they were never localized for me. It's this saccharine sweet little magic school manga, and I was obsessed with it when I was younger. Still mildly obsessed with it now. It's quite cute. Each creature sort of got its own combination of colors from the palette I color picked from the picture. I'm pretty sure, like 90% sure, it's Redwoods National Park. The description on Pixabay where the randomizer linked to said California. It's weird because of the snow, but I think it extends up into the mountains. The drawing themselves wound up quite, like, almost simple for me. I was working with a lot, but after the sketch stage, it went a little bit more quickly. I think that the coloring and all of like the lining and stuff were some of the faster I've been with this kind of process, but I don't know if they kind of turned out messy. As I got around to each, I changed the sketches for the jackalope and the Perryton. I made the jackalope look a little bit more like a snowshoe hare and changed the Perryton to look a little bit more like a reindeer. It is kind of ironic knowing the location is and having like a very subarctic looking group of animals, but I was trying to base them purely off of the vibes of this one picture. As I finished the colors for each, I'd pop them into the picture and try to resize them to kind of fit where I thought they would look best in the composition. This was almost like playing with paper dolls, just sort of dragging each creature around to where it looked the most natural while trying to avoid covering the others. The griffin is skulking further in the background and the drake fox is hidden a bit further back too. The herd animals are a little bit more centered, and in reality, obviously, you would not see each of these creatures in one picture, but I made the whole food chain, damn it, and they're gonna show up. Also, I mean, like, in real life, if you find yourself nearby a herd of animals, tip, by the way, for, like, nature stuff, you're probably just as near their predator. Like, it's probably just downwind of you. This is kind of a visual representation of that. The jackalope and the squirrel I decided to put closer to the foreground, mostly because you can see them better there because they're small. Unless all of these creatures are way bigger than they seem, I probably fudged the proportions a little bit based off of the guy I used some digital magic to erase in the beginning versus the size of the trees, but we'll either pretend the trees are just a bit smaller or the animals are a bit bigger, if you prefer that. The mixed media piece where all the animals are spliced into this background isn't something that I would normally consider like a finished piece for me. It's almost more of a fun visualization for these creature designs. Like, I don't use pictures for backgrounds a lot, and I definitely don't do mixed media a lot, if you couldn't tell. So this is definitely a fun experiment to play around with at the very least. Now, that being said, I did try to sort of blend everything together and make it look a little bit more cohesive. I hid some animals behind trees and copy pasted from the picture to achieve that, and left the shading until I had the creatures in it to sort of match them to the dappled lighting where they stood. I even went in with Clip's artistic effect to try and make the picture look a little bit more like graphic or drawn, and added some extra layers on top of everything to make it seem more tied together, like a noise layer, a couple more colors, just generally like trying to make it look more cohesive. All in all, this was definitely a fun little experiment. I think it could be fun to revisit this, maybe with some other aspects to the challenge. But let me know what you think about this in the comments, or give it a like if you did like it. You can also subscribe. I think that my next big goal is actually going to be 500. It's kind of a jump, but I think that I can get there, hopefully. Thanks so much for the current support. At that though, I'll leave this here, and I'll see y'all next time.